Hi, everyone. Welcome to Livestream Wednesday. I am talking to you with you today about being authentic. And, I come on live so that if you have questions, now's your chance to ask those questions. And, you know, don't be afraid to ask, because if you are thinking of a question, then someone else is probably thinking the same thing. And you're not just helping yourself, you're helping someone else. So ask questions if you have questions. But I've been reading this book, and I brought it up the other day, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. And this book has been phenomenal. So this is my first time reading it through, but I'm definitely going to read it again. Those of you in my coaching know that repetition is the key. So I will be going back. I've already gone back with to some chapters. It's taken me a little while. It's a small book. It's it's an easy read, but it's fantastic. Let me tell you a little bit about this author if you don't know who she is. So she and a lot of people actually do know who Brene Brown is. For those of you who don't, let me explain a little bit. So she is a researcher, and she's a PhD, licensed marriage. What does the LMSW stand for? What does that stand for? What does anybody know what that stands for? What does LMSW stand for in psychology? So she is a psychologist. She's a licensed master social worker. That's right. She's been featured on Oprah, and she has a couple, I believe at least one, a New York Times bestseller. And this is one of them, The Gifts of Imperfection. So I love this book because she talks about imperfection, and not everybody talks about imperfection. It's not something that we talk about, right? It's not something, and I am a recovering perfectionist myself. It's probably why I love this book so much so far. I don't agree with everything that it has in it, but I do, for the most part, the majority of everything I agree with, and I'm halfway through. And so I want to bring up, she calls them guideposts. It's chapter 3, Cultivating a Resilient Spirit. And she goes a little bit into being an alcoholic. So and it's interesting because she talks about addiction. And some of you know a little bit of my background story, doing drugs and, as a teen, and coming from a dysfunctional background, which, like a lot of you have, I know I'm not the only person. But she goes in a little bit into this about her history with alcoholism and numbing pain, and uncomfortabableness, really, because she's accomplished. She finished getting degrees. But anytime, she's finished, she's gone into career, she's done her research, but anytime she was uncomfortable or faced with something that had to do really with vulnerability or her feelings, being authentic, because she says it herself in this book, and I'll show it again for those of you who are just joining The Gifts of Imperfection. She says it herself, that she could be a chameleon. She could fit the part for anybody and everybody if they needed her to. She knows how to behave in different environments to make people comfortable. And that's what she did. She would adjust, and maybe say little white lies. She didn't actually put that in there. I'm throwing that in there, but I do know from my own experience, life experience, coaching experience, that, and being a recovering perfectionist, that it's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to tell people that you're not perfect, or that, something's going on. I have books back there where, they say that you have to just work hard and keep going and keep going. And in this book, she talks about that. She talks about how she realizes that things don't have to be hard and heartbreaking in order to be a success. And it's important to slow down sometimes. and listen to yourself, listen to your inner voice. We all have it. It's called intuition. You can call it gifts. Some people have them a little bit more, but you have that little voice. And it's important to listen, because if you have something going on, you get hurt somehow, or things around you just don't seem to be going smoothly, they're not right, it's because something is going on, and it's time to evaluate and have awareness. That's one thing I love about this book. She breaks it down. So this woman, Brene Brown, psychologist, she's got her master's in psychology, in excuse me, she has her master's in, let me look that up again here, social work. Okay, and she's done a lot of research, and she's researched tons of people. And her research, so get this, I was always, so let me just tell you, I was always using my words to make them perfect and make sure they were only positive. And I just say that's bullshit. Excuse me, like I just, excuse me. But being perfect is not accessible ever. And sometimes we cuss, sometimes we hurt ourselves, sometimes we make a mistake. And it's okay to be vulnerable, because it gives other people the, yeah, Cindy, it's a great book. It gives other people courage. And Cindy, I mean, you are full of courage. And even though, life, like I said, is not perfect, but being in the front line of people needing help is, I mean, that most people are going backwards when people need help. Everyone at that point is like, oh, I have my own problems or health issues. But someone like you, Cindy, you go straight through that. And I admire that. We've spent some time together, and you're really doing it, sister. And I think that's fantastic. So, what she talks about, so what she researched was shame, shame and guilt, and the negative feelings that human beings naturally have. We all have them. And she talked about authenticity. She talks about authenticity, and you gain confidence in being authentic by also realizing that you will have shame and you will have guilt, and there's a difference. So she breaks it down, and the difference between shame and guilt, I actually didn't think that I had any of the shaming part, but according to her definition, I fit the bill too. Guilt, definitely. I mean, it's just, we can't be perfect, we can't be in every place all of the time. But so what she talks about is shaming. So when you talk to yourself, and there's the definition of that she gives of shaming, is when you say that I'm terrible. Let's say you make a mistake. It's like, I always make mistakes. I'm a terrible person. I can never get it right. So you're basically telling yourself that, it's you that you're talking about, and not your act, not the act of the mistake. It's you that you're shaming and putting down. So that's what shame is. And then guilt, she says, is, saying like, darn it, like, shoot, I did that. I feel bad about it. I shouldn't have done that. She also goes in to say that guilt is a good thing in the way of helping people to fix whatever mistake that they made, or to go and to become better and have better behavior the next time, or learn to apologize, because it's those feelings. She says that the shame can really hold you back, because you're just beating yourself up. And according to her, she suffered from it. And she actually says, and I love this, that she still suffers from it. So she is working on herself all of the time, every day, raising children, having a career, being married. And it's just the epitome of authenticity, because if you are okay with being vulnerable and showing everybody your imperfections, I mean, if that isn't authentic, what is? Right? Because we all go through things and challenges in our life. And it's important that we learn to talk about them, not having a pity party or having friends that, are one upping each other. She also talked about that too, having the right kind of support. And I mean, it is so important to have the right kind of support. I've been through therapy. I've had coaches myself. I'm a coach. And if it isn't a fit with people, then it isn't a fit. That I want my clients to be successful. And if it isn't a fit, let's find what is a fit. Um, but, and same with me, where even recently I had a coach I was so excited about, a team. I thought they were amazing going in. And then once I got in, I realized that it wasn't a fit. There were so many things that weren't for me. And I'll just say, let me just say one of them, because this really goes against who I am. That team, fantastic. They had a lot to offer, not for me. And one of the things was they had advised us not to thank anybody. So if someone joins you for a live stream, so let's say I'm thanking you guys for joining me today, it wouldn't be the same without you. And I love that you're here. And if you have any questions, pop them in the post and I will answer them. And I am grateful for you. So that was something that we were told not to do. And that goes against my beliefs and how I want to coach. So there were other things, which is, it is what it is. And that's just me. But it's important to be authentic and be okay with letting go, and to be okay with changing if you have to, and to also be okay with being vulnerable and saying that you are not perfect. I know a lot of people, former coaches of mine, who would say, what are you doing in a t-shirt and a sweater, right? I'm going to go and enjoy. We've done our work for the morning. I'm going to go enjoy the park with the kids, do some research myself. I love to research these books I read. And this one I'm really diving into right now, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. So let's go into a little bit about support, because Brene, she was featured on Oprah, so she's a big deal. And she's a speaker. She's been speaking for many years now. She's a recovering addict. She says alcohol, overstudying, over perfectionism, smoking cigarettes, and I can attest to all of that. And what she did was she was, she wasn't such an addict that she needed to claim her addiction and she couldn't function. So she was a functioning addict, and then she numbed the pain and the uncomfortableness. And I mean, like I said, I can attest to that. And now that I am sober, it's such a different experience life. And it's so much better, in my opinion, because what she also talked about was when you numb the uncomfortableness or pain, you numb the negative feelings, you also numb the positive feelings. And it is so true, because you don't have a real perspective. You have a changed perspective and perception. And, I've heard of, psilocybin and other psychedelics, LSD, like the Timothy Leary era, right? Mushrooms and those kinds of things being used for PTSD and other therapies. And I actually, I believe that those can be beneficial. The support is everything. So I'm not going to play it down that, there isn't a time and a place, but for your everyday living. And if you're not doing this for therapy, be authentically you, be imperfect. It's okay not to say the right thing. And it's even better because you'll be aware of it if you're numbing the pain somehow with a substance, or even over cleaning or some sort of activity. Some people can't stay still. They don't know what to do with themselves. And, that's something, if you're avoiding, being your natural self. Think about it, be aware, and have the right support. So I want to talk about that she is a well-known speaker, a psychologist, a research psychologist, and she has on many occasions talked in public. And she talks about, getting nervous, and that whole feeling that I've talked about before, the confidence, and having feelings of, can I do this, or am I going to, fit the crowd? Am I going to say the right thing? All of those things go through her mind, and she claims still, this book, how old is this book? I believe it came out in 2010. Okay, so it's actually a decade old. And I don't know of any new books that she has. If you guys know, let me, put it in the comments, and I'll be sure to check it out. Brene Brown, for those of you who are just joining. So what I want to point out is she talks about having the right kind of support. And I'm bringing this up because, it's important. Having the right kind of support, being in the right kind of environment is everything. Without having the right kind of support, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't have made the mistakes and have had the successes, and be the right kind of support for people who fit with me. And life isn't perfect. I'm constantly watching ebb and flow, and other people, and improving. But nothing is perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. And as long as you are being authentic, there's a certain energy that goes with that. Nothing is perfect. You're going to have, things in your life that aren't going right. But that's the way life is. It builds your resilience. You learn how to be resilient and problem solve. Now, if things are going completely sideways, that's something different. You build up skills. But when you're being authentic and you're not afraid to show who you are, one, you find out who your real friends are. You find out who is really there for you and the kind of people that you want in your life. And two, you build the resilience and you find out what your own triggers are, and you build awareness so that you can improve, because that's what we're here to do as human beings, grow mentally, all of the time, in spirit. She also talks about spiritualism. I'm not sure if I'll be able to touch on that today, but I'm going to do a few lives with this book because there's so much information that she has in here that I can't, fit this all in 30 minutes. So I do want to point out, right? She's a speaker, well-known speaker. She has talked in front of many crowds, and some of her speaking events haven't been successful in her mind, and that's what I want to bring up. Some things are not going to work out. It's just the way it is, and I personally have learned how to ride that wave and watch other people and their paradigms. We all have our own paradigms. It's just a map, a behavioral map, an energetic map that we have the power to change. And so she talked about here in a couple of instances of speaking publicly and it not going very well. She said one time in her early career, it might have been in 2008, 2006 perhaps, that she was speaking at a country club. I believe it was a country club. She was speaking at an event, and the woman who hired her didn't know that she was a shame researcher. She didn't, realize that she researched the negative feelings of human beings. And the woman who hired her wasn't very happy with that. And so at the last minute, she had told Brene not to talk about anything to do with shame, and she needed to talk all about joy and how we can benefit and the how to get better. And this woman, so what she did was she did what the woman who hired her told her to do. She didn't have the guts to speak up. She didn't know what to say. And so she said she was in front of the room the whole time. I think it was like an hour speech, a talking event, repeating the words, life is good, life is joyful. And Cindy, if you want to read this, or anyone else joining, you'll read in the chapter, and I believe it was chapter 1, could have been chapter 2. I'm on chapter 3 right now. And she said it was terrible, and she told no one about it. And then it came up years later when she had another event that went wrong. She spoke in front of a school assembly of parents, and she said she felt the tension, she felt the energy before she even got up to the podium to talk. Had asked the principal, had asked another advisor there, and both of them said, nothing's, everything's fine. And come to find out later, the assembly was required, the parents were required to attend. When you force anybody to do anything, no one's going to like that. And then it was on the subject of stop hovering. So there was a lot of hovering parents. And she said she didn't even touch on the subject. But there was one man in particular and other people in the audience, they were just, upset the whole time, arms crossed. One man was making comments under his breath, and she said she would people please. She was trying to people please the whole time. And the reason I love this is she has success stories. She's an author of at least one best-selling book, and I believe she had another one called "I Thought It Was Just Me." But she still got overwhelmed, and she broke down. She went into she did the assembly. She tried to people please. She said the whole time what I did was I tried to impress this people, especially that man, and that is just recipe for disaster. I know that as well. When I have, and I can feel, all of us have this intuition. Mine has been developing for a long time. All of us have the same gifts. If you've been developing them, if you've been suppressing them, they're not as developed, but you can develop them. So especially if you get that feeling of someone in the audience that doubts you or doesn't believe you. You're trying to prove yourself the whole time, and it just is a recipe for disaster. I've been sweating before, wanted to throw up, and just, but what she says was, after the talk, she went to her car, she was shallow breathed, breathing shallowly. She was so upset with herself. And then she called someone that she could trust. And that's what I want to circle back to, is having the right kind of support. If you have, and sometimes I do recommend therapy. I think therapy can be beneficial. Especially in combination with coaching. I'm not a therapist, but I do believe that it can be beneficial. So, you do everything to help yourself. But she talked about, so if you have a coach that isn't the right fit, or a therapist, or someone in your life, it's important to be able to step back and make a change. And that doesn't mean, if you have someone close in your life, a therapist or a coach, you can hire someone else. You can, make that adjustment quite easily. If it's someone close, in your life, a loved one, family member, friend, spouse, partner, it's important to look at your own behavior and see what can be improved, because I guarantee there has to be, again, speaking from experience, when you go through your own journey of self-improvement, there's so much that you learn when you stop blaming and shaming other people and yourself. It's eye-opening, and it's wonderful, and it helps you while you're going through rough times, because they do happen. They don't have to happen all the time, but they do happen, and it builds resilience. So she called someone that she trusted, and to be authentic, and to build the resiliency. It's so important to be surrounded by the right people, and to be able to open up and tell this person, and you may not have even a handful of people you can go to. You need at least one. um, Having a couple, 2 to 3, is really great. I mean, count yourself blessed and lucky to have 2 to 3 people that you can count on to listen to you. People who are not going to try to solve your problems, and let you vent, one, and then also come up with your own solutions, because no one knows what you need more than yourself. Yes, it's so helpful to have expert advice, but you really know yourself, and it's important to trust yourself, especially if there's imposter syndrome going on, imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, things like that. I mean, again, those are things that I've known well, um, to where it's important to be able to be authentic and surround yourself with the right people. Because I realized when I look back, and I was really afraid to give my opinion, and I will still speak up sometimes when I don't want to, or the environment doesn't seem like, it's all supportive, because we do have to be ourselves. And I just really can't care what everybody thinks, anymore. I want to be liked, but I have my own uh, values and goals, and that's important for you to have as well. And that's how you're authentic. That's how you can be authentically you. But when I look back at the people who supported me, in times past, I wasn't supported by the right people, and I couldn't be myself as easily, because I would get, either the one upper of, well, my problems are bigger than yours because this, and this happened to me, or this is happening to me. And she goes into the definition of the people that you don't want to be supported by with that type of conversation, with the vulnerable, I messed up. I just totally made a mistake. I was completely not myself, with that kind of conversation. She talks about, making sure the person listens to you. They're not trying to one up you with the, oh, yeah, your problem is this, but what about mine? Or that person that is constantly saying, like, well, the world's just, it's terrible, and no wonder that happened. It's the person who follows Murphy's Law. You don't want to be supported by someone like that. And then, I made another realization recently. You also want someone who has their feet on the ground. I do believe that, in energy, and we call to us how we are and what we're feeling. But we also have this reality that is going on at the same time. For those of you who are, into fifth dimension, sixth dimension, there's a lot of spirit that is surrounding us. We are spirit. There's so much of a base of that, but also too, we're in this experience, this human experience, and it's important to learn the mechanics. It's important to learn how to communicate in this experience, and to be around the right people. And if you're told, something that just doesn't seem right, use your best judgment. If you're told, something that just doesn't seem like, how do I put this? You really have to use your best judgment and know what is reality for you, and what is doable for you and what isn't. And it's okay to say no, and that I don't believe that. Just like being able to thank you for joining me today. I want to do that. I love that. I'm going to continue to do that. I love my listeners. I'm so grateful for the people who follow me, and for the people who are participate, and my clients. I think that is so important, and one thing that we're lacking, in our world right now, is appreciation and gratitude. So let me see. She talks about the definition of people, the one upper, and also the person who's going to, and the shaming person, the person who tells you, you get in trouble for making a mistake. Why did you do that? You know better, and all of those kinds of things. So there's that type of personality as well that you don't want to have in your support group. To be authentic and to build resilience, it's important to be surrounded by the right people and have um, the confidence that it's okay to change if something isn't the right fit. Um, and it's okay to be authentic. It doesn't mean putting all of your beliefs on someone. It means saying and owning your own beliefs, your own story, because that's important. Um, I would say that's the most important thing, to own who you are and your story, and to be able to speak your truth without having to worry from the closest people around you, the people that are supposed to support you, without having to worry about them shaming you, guilting you, one-upping you, any of those things. You want someone who's going to listen to you, say you recognize, yeah, your feelings, like that must have been pretty tough. Maybe recognize, when they made a mistake. And then also, and this is probably the coach in me, asking, what about next time? How are you going to handle it next time? Or how do you want to handle it next time? Um, do you want some accountability? So being authentic is so important. I mean, that's something that I had to strive for at one point, the whole fake it till you make it. Um, but it feels so good to be yourself. And it is hard sometimes, I'm just going to say this, to be authentic when someone around you doesn't like your authenticity. But that's where you have to just stop caring what other people think. Um, yeah, and this live stream is for, those, I know you listeners, you want people to like you. I want people to like me too, but it only to a certain point. If I have to think about my own values or my goals or my family or my safety, there's no question what I'm going to do. I'm going to be authentic and then find a different environment. Environment is everything. So just remember, it's okay to make mistakes. It's important to know that you're here to make mistakes and learn from them, and to be vulnerable. We all are, and it's okay to talk about it. Make sure you have the right kind of support. No one is perfect. Perfectionism kills confidence and persistence. Things are not easy, but you can navigate them. And if you want support, you can send me a message, let me know, and I will give you a free 45-minute discovery session. All right, put any questions in the comments for those of you who are watching the recording, and I will be sure to answer those. Have a great day, and thanks for joining.